for doing this with us tonight.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks.
That's October 6th. It's the 2,715th day since President Bush declared mission accomplished in Iraq, the 2,304th day since he declared victory in Afghanistan, and the 170th day of the Deepwater Horizon disaster in the Gulf. I'm Keith Olbermann. Good night and good luck. And now, to discuss how Christine O'Donnell is using Rachel Maddow in a fundraising letter, ladies and gentlemen, here is... Wait, hold on, I've got it. Rachel Maddow. Good evening, Rachel.
Keith, you're in it, too.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
What happened to our idea?
That we were going to try to take a cut from all these guys?
Right. Well, if they're going to do it, let's just charge them for it. I mean, look, if Christine O'Donnell can keep some of her campaign funds, why can't we keep some of her campaign funds?
You know, I think the reason we never pursued it before is that it seemed vaguely illegal, but now nothing's illegal in campaign finance.
Just as long as nobody touches anybody or themselves, we're fine, right, in Delaware?
I'll see if I can get Bahrain to pick up the tab for it, Keith.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks to you at home for staying with us for the next hour. This is a cable news show that talks less about Sarah Palin than most other cable news shows, at least as far as I know. Has to do with the fact that Ms. Palin does not have a job or any sort of formal position in any sort of political entity other than her position at the Fox News Channel. However, in Ms. Palin's capacity as conservative celebrity without portfolio, she has just done liberals and Democrats a huge favor for this year's elections. She has picked a fight that is exactly the kind of fight that liberals and Democrats should want to be having across the country right now. So that's coming up this hour. Plus, NBC's Richard Engel is here live in studio. Plus, we have a very, very, very large chart that we are very proud of. There's lots coming up. But we begin tonight with the Republican establishment making an unexpected choice today about how to handle one of its most high-profile races. The Republican establishment has to make some difficult decisions about some of their candidates this year, specifically about some of their more colorful, idiosyncratic, unorthodox candidates who have unseated more establishment Republican choices across the country. For candidates in Republican primaries this year, nothing was beyond the pale. There was no policy that would make a Republican primary candidate seem too conservative. This year, there was nothing that screamed unelectable about arguing that women should be forced to bear their rapists' children, or that we should get rid of our right to elect senators, or of threatening that conservatives will turn to violent revolution. They will use the right to bear arms to get their way if they don't get their way by voting in this year's elections. None of that stuff was too extreme for candidates competing in Republican primaries this year, not this year. But now, it's no longer the primaries. It is the general election. They are running against Democrats. And the Republican powers that be have to assess who's viable. Which of their candidates gets triaged? Who gets cut off? Who gets left on the side of the road by the Republican Party because as a candidate, that person has no shot at winning? And who still gets party backing? Who might make it? They've got to decide that, and they've also got to decide from which of these candidates the party is going to accept leadership. They have to figure out which of these candidates' positions are going to be adopted as the Republican Party's own positions. Hard decisions to make for the Republicans this year. Hard decisions to make, particularly in a year when the candidates the party chose didn't win. Well, in the last 24 hours, remarkably, the Republican Party decided to get behind probably their least viable major ticket candidate, anew. They also decided that the party is going to adopt what is arguably the single craziest position that candidate has taken in what has been a thoroughly crazy campaign. Here's Christine O'Donnell speaking at a debate during the 2006 Senate primary in Delaware.
I think that in making a statement whether China is a friend or foe, we have to be careful not to label all Chinese. But in terms of the government, I think that there is a very carefully thought out and strategic plan to take over America. I think that China, the Chinese government is definitely a foe. There's much that I want to say that I wish I wasn't privy to some of the classified information that I am privy to, because I think that
can I interrupt and say, how are you privy to classified information?
Because I've been working in various with various nonprofit groups for over 15 years, and we've been sending missionaries to China for a very long time, and these missionaries go to China with risking their lives because you are not allowed to be a Christian over there. So a country that forces women to have abortion and mandates that you can only have one child and will not allow you the freedom to read the Bible, you think they can be our friend? We have to look at our history and realize that if they pretend to be our friend, it's because they've got something up their sleeve.
Credit to the poor guy who's saying, you have a security clearance? You have a security clearance to handle classified information? She's like, shut up. I have more to say about China. I can't tell you how I know it. The existence of this argument from Christine O'Donnell was unearthed by the Associated Press earlier this week. It was Greg Sargent at the Washington Post website, the Plumline blog, that dug up the audio. Christine O'Donnell has not been commenting on this revelation since it was made public. We went ahead and called her campaign today to try to get a comment ourselves. Shockingly, none was offered. But the Republican Party, both the actual Republican Party by way of its current chairman, Michael Steele, and the former chairman, who still appears to be not so secretly running things there, the guy with some real power there, Ed Gillespie, both within the last 24 hours were asked about Christine O'Donnell's proposition that she had classified information about an impending Chinese takeover of America. Here's how they responded. This is incredible. Start with the Michael Steele clip of him speaking last night with Lawrence O'Donnell.
Do you agree with Christine O'Donnell? Do you wish she wasn't privy to classified information? I mean, America would be safer if she was not privy to classified information, wouldn't it?
Christine O'Donnell is a fantastic candidate for us for the United States Senate, and I can't wait to call her senator.
Michael, you know she's lying about the classified information, right? I mean, reassure the country. Christine's lying about it. She doesn't have any classified information.
Do you know that,
Don't worry.
Do you know that?
Is it legal?
You know that?
Is it legal for her to have classified information, Michael?
No. Let me ask the question. Do you know that for sure?
I know it to an absolute certainty.
You just called the...
I know it to a certainty.
Produce your evidence and invite me back on the program to talk about it.
She is absolutely lying.
Do you think Christine O'Donnell has classified information?
I don't know what information Christine O'Donnell has. I think there's a very legitimate concern about the extent to which China controls our debt and the impact that's going to have on our economy, and the fact that China, has
that's not the question. The question is her making a statement that she has classified information.
Well, Chris, you're asking me a question I can't answer. I don't know what information Christine O'Donnell has or doesn't have. Whether it's classified or not, I don't know.
Chris Jansing with Ed Gillespie. To be clear, Mr. Gillespie says he doesn't know. It's possible Christine O'Donnell has classified information about a secret Chinese plot to take over the United States. She had that classified information leaked to her in her capacity back in 2006 as a religious right anti-condom activist. You think that's right, huh? Getting a security clearance so as to be privy to classified information is not as easy as you might imagine. It tends to involve stuff like a polygraph test and investigations into your financial background, visits from the FBI. You don't even get that far unless the government has decided you're the kind of person who needs to know secret classified information. My guess is conservative PR reps with friends who are missionaries, probably not at the top of the government's need-to-know list, even in the Bush administration. If someone who did have access to classified information did somehow leak classified information to Christine O'Donnell, that would most likely be an actual crime. Leaking classified information to anti-condom activists or anybody else without a security clearance is punishable by U.S. law with prison time and everything. So if we are actually to the point where people are taking this claim that Christine O'Donnell was privy to classified information seriously, if Michael Steele is making that case to Lawrence O'Donnell and Ed Gillespie is making that case to Chris Jansing, both on this network, twice in the last 24 hours, then by rights there should be calls for a criminal investigation into a leak of classified information to somebody who should not have had it. But the Republican Party chairman, Michael Steele, and Ed Gillespie, the former chairman, who secretly seems to still be running things with Karl Rove, they're just going with this. Christine O'Donnell today, down 17 points in one poll and down 24 in the other. But the Republican Party's leaders are with her on what might be the craziest thing she has ever been found to have said so far. Who knows what Bill Maher will unveil on Friday. Meanwhile, if there is a secret Chinese plot to take over the United States, Maybe they're starting with our government. Democrats have apparently decided to use that prospect as a cudgel to beat Republicans over the head this year. You know already about the giant Ed Gillespie, Karl Rove operation that's promising to spend over $50 million in this year's elections. We'll have more on Crossroads, American Crossroads, coming up in just a moment. But do you want to know who's spending even more on conservative causes and candidates this year? It's the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber's pledged to spend $75 million this campaign season. There's no bigger dog in the dogfight of outside groups funding political ads this year. $75 million. Think Progress at the Center for American Progress yesterday exposed how, with the chamber spending those $75 million on America's elections this year, nobody has any idea where that money comes from. Quote, the chamber funds its political attack campaign out of its general account, which solicits foreign funding. So $75 million being spent to influence the outcome of U.S. congressional races out of a fund that reportedly accepts contributions from foreign entities. The chamber has freaked out about this allegation from Think Progress, putting out statement after statement. I think it's at least 5 statements at last count, attacking Think Progress for having made this allegation. But so far, the only thing they have said to assure us that their $75 million Bigfoot anti-democratic ad spending binge this year is not being fueled by foreign money, by, say, Chinese companies trying to decide who gets elected in the United States. The only thing the chamber has said to refute that charge is that they have a system, an internal system, to make sure that the foreign money they solicit into their general fund doesn't touch the attack ads that they produce and fund out of their general fund. A system, the details of which they will not disclose, but which they promise, they pinky swear, that the foreign money isn't really what they're spending on their massive ad war against Democrats. They promise. Are you reassured? Are you reassured by their internal systems that they won't disclose? Are you reassured by their promises? Democratic candidates are counting on you not being reassured by that. Here's what Democratic Congressman Tom Perriello of Virginia had to say about a Chamber of Commerce ad being run against him in his home district.
This latest move is beyond outrageous to being fundamentally un-American and undemocratic. I'm just outraged. I think Senator Hurst just got to decide at this point whether there are any principles more important than winning. And I would think protecting American democracy and American jobs would be up there.
The campaign of Democratic Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado also hitting his opponent for letting the Chamber of Commerce fund ads on his behalf. Quote, why won't Ken Buck stand up against the practices of these shady special interests, orchestrating attacks on his behalf, and denounce the practice of accepting overseas expenditures to fund smear campaigns? Ken Buck should reject the Chamber's support and call on them to immediately stop running ads on his behalf with tainted foreign money. The size of the worry about this allegation from Think Progress, the size of the worry about this prospect of foreign funding of an effort to shape the U.S. government, the size of the worry about this allegation on the right is evident in the size of the freakout about these allegations on the right, and they are freaking out. Joining us now is Scott Thomas. He's a former chairman of the Federal Election Commission. Mr. Thomas, thank you very much for being here. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Rachel. Happy to be here.
Can you help us understand how serious this charge is? If foreign money were making its way into the chamber's political ads, would that be illegal?
Well, most likely, yes. There's been a flat prohibition on foreign national contributions and expenditures in connection with federal elections for many, many years. And so if it turns out that any money, in fact, is being knowingly put into the process from foreign companies or from foreign government sources, that would be a serious problem.
How are those laws against foreign contributions to American political campaigns, how are they actually enforced? I mean, if so many of these outside groups don't have to disclose who their donors are, how do you enforce it?
Well, we do have a very weak disclosure system right now, and it makes it much harder, obviously, to track these kinds of things, to get the leads that would help people unearth these kinds of connections. The Federal Election Commission, bless their hearts, they've issued a series of rulings recently that have made the disclosure almost non-existent because, in essence, a donor can avoid disclosure by basically not earmarking their money to be used for particular ads for particular candidates. And so we're seeing far less disclosure. So the chances of people picking up on these stories is certainly less these days than it used to be.
At this point, the way that the law is set up with those FEC rulings, with the Citizens United precedent in the Supreme Court, am I right to think that the only real protection that we've got about this